What is up, fellas? What is up? All right, guys. So it is good to see you on a Monday night. If some of you guys saw on Facebook, we are not going to be doing real flight tonight because I was able to do some talking and some smooth transactions, and we have got a very special guest this evening. Um, and Dave Kowalski, thank you, sir. A guy who starts on time. You would never believe how close we are to not starting on time ever. So, without any further ado, I'm going to bring in our special guest for the evening, and it is our good friend to the community. It is Ray from Gooniac, RC EDF Creations. Ray, welcome to the show, sir. You are you're up, man. so
Howdy, people.
so it is
What's happening, everybody?
it is great to have you tonight, Ray. I really appreciate you being able to come on with us. Everybody is familiar, or at least a lot of the folks, certainly the audience here is familiar with what you do as far as the Firey Booties, the Afterburners, and
Yep.
but I don't think a lot of folks get to interact with you in this way, where they actually get to see you and they get to see our pretty faces, and
I don't know about that part, but yeah.
so. What I want to do is, kind of give folks a little, a little perspective of how you got started in RC and what you're all about, and kind of give you an opportunity, or give the folks here an opportunity to get to know you a little better. So,
Okay.
I suck at doing interviews. So I'm going to put my dog up here in my lap because otherwise he's just going to be here crying all night. So yeah, man, to get started, can you give us an idea? Like, how long have you been in the RC game? How long you been flying?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. Well, I'll just frame it this way. I've been an aviation guy from basically since I was, since I can remember. My dad was a crew chief on Chinooks in Vietnam. So he always had, aviation on the brain, and he kind of instilled it in me. Of course, me being the fanatic that I am, I went a little overboard. Nobody's been as into it as I am, but it started there with my dad. Always into drawing planes. Looking things up, reading the books about them. My dad had a World War II, a book with World War II aircraft. It was huge. Had everything in vivid color. So I remember going through that. And then my brother was into it. So I'd always done little things with RC, because RC had pretty much just barely gotten to where it was mainstream when I got started. So I had little RC cars and stuff up through my younger years, and then right about 9 years old, I got a control line plane, and then that's where it all started. My brother helped me with that. Then my brother, he's older than I am, so he was able to get some RC stuff. We started out with the Duraplane, and so basically starting at 9, 10, 11, 12. I was working on RC stuff, and I really sucked at it. We both did. I mean, it was crap. We got a Duraplane, and that plane was absolute crap. But we didn't have anybody to help, so we did the best we could with what we had. We got the Duraplane. We went through all the magazines. RCM magazine was something that I'd always looked at. I remember looking at the Hazel Sig models, all those ads they used to have. And all the Cox models, we used to have those. My brother had control line models. My dad actually did control line stuff in Vietnam. That's what they did for their spare time whenever they had time. So he had an old Fox 35 that he'd start up every now and then. So I mean, basically, that's always been there. But my brother and I, we started with the RC stuff. It started with the Duraplane, and like I said, it was complete crap, and we were crap. We crashed that thing more than we did anything. It had a nitro motor, what was it, an OS FP40, and we crashed it. That's all we did. I think the longest flight we had on it was, probably about 15 to 20 seconds, and we didn't have any control. It was up, and it avoided the ground a few times and did what it did best. It crashed. So we struggled with that for a long time. I basically went for about probably 7-8 years of just really sucking at RC, but we kept plugging at it. My brother and I did it. There's this place out here in the Bay Area called Shoreline Amphitheater. It was a big parking lot, and that's where all the guys would go fly at that time. And we just go out there and watch them. There are guys out there with Quickie 500 planes. Basically, pretty much just about everything that was big at the time. We didn't see many ducted fan models, but there was a hobby shop right down the street that had ducted fan models. There was another big hobby shop of the day called San Antonio Hobby Shop, which was huge. We used to go there all the time.
Yeah, these were the old, like the nitro style ducted fans, yeah?
Oh, yeah, the nitro ones. So, they only worked sometimes. They didn't always work. But they were cool to see when they did. So, we just did what we could at the time. Then I lived here in the Bay Area, which is in, not too far from San Francisco. We ended up, my mom's sister and I, we ended up moving to the Central Valley, early 90s. And then I got into one of the small schools there. It was a small town, small school. But they had a really cool teacher who was a pilot, but he also wanted to get kids involved in aviation. So he had a class called aerodynamics. And what he did was he took the basics for flight school, the ground school for private pilot's license. And then part of your project, your final project, was building a plane and flying it. So we put together the Telemaster 40. And then that's when everything changed, because he used to fly his plane back and forth to school because he lived, about an hour and a half, a little over an hour away. It was cheaper to fly in. He had a Grumman Tiger. And there were crop dusters. This is out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the boonies. So he'd land at the crop dusting field and come to work and then take off and go back home. But he also was an avid RC pilot. So he had that program. That's when I got started, because then I learned how to build the right way, not with the crash-worthy Duraplane. And then he actually, this is right when buddy boxing came out. So we had a cord. I wish I had the radio still, but it was an Airtronics radio. And he had a cable, you just plug in. It's like an old computer cable. And that's when I actually got good, because he gave me the basics that I needed to know, showed me how to fly, all the stuff that you need to know. The Telemaster is an awesome plane. And if you have somebody that knows how to fly, Telemaster can teach you everything that you need to know about RC flight. Any kind of plane, doesn't matter what it is. So that's where it started. And then I had that class for 2 years, my junior and senior year in high school. By the time I was done my junior year, because we started, I think we had about 3 to 4 months of flying before the end of the year. I basically surpassed my teacher and ended up, doing more than he could with the planes. And that's when it all started. I took about 10 years of just crashing the crap out of everything. Maybe a little less than that, 7 or 8. And then I got good at it and then kept going from there.
Right. So without giving away your age, how long?
I don't care. You can.
Yeah, without giving up your age.
I don't care if you know how old I am. I'll be 45 in May, so it's been a while.
Right. So we're talking about, 30, 35 years that you've been in the hobby.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Easy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
but like I said, I want people to know this. I sucked for a long time.
I think we
I
all
was
did.
really bad for a long time.
Yep.
But I eventually got to the point where I am. You know, after a couple of years of doing this, of doing it with proper instruction, that's the most important part. I had an instructor that taught me all the basics, and it was a tail dragger that I learned on, and it was a little small dirt strip next to a field. So we only had about maybe 200 feet to take off and land, and if you missed, you're going to hit something.
Right.
So there was a tree on one side, and then a field on another, and then a whole bunch of obstacles. So, yeah, most important thing for me, I can't look at the chat either, guys. Sorry if you've been saying stuff, but the most important thing for me was getting that instruction.
People sitting here, you know, saying like, "Hey, Ray,
Yeah.
what's up? I suck too."
Yeah. No, everybody, you know, they're like, "Oh my God, he makes it look so easy." Guys, I sucked for a long time. A long time I was bad. So, you know, it's just one of those things, having somebody help. That's why I like to help people, because all it takes sometimes is just a couple pointers. Next thing you know, somebody actually gets it and they're able to do things consistently and get better and better and better. So that's just what I like to do. I like to help people get over the hump, because I've been there and I was there for a while.
Right.
And it was really embarrassing. It was really embarrassing for a while. But yeah, I'm not there anymore. It's to a good point.
Yep, and Chuck G, you know, just made a comment in the chat that's very true, that being bad is really expensive.
Yes. Thankfully, at the time when we were learning, it wasn't, because it was, you know, there were no foam planes. But the plane that I flew, it was the Duraplane. I don't know if anybody knows, but the Duraplane was a channel of aluminum, little thing of PVC, and then a foam wing, and it was just, I actually got better at this, and somebody brought a Duraplane, and I knew how to fly. The thing is fast, because it was heavy. It was a brick. So, yeah, but like I said, I sucked for a long time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting that you brought up that you know, that once you got an instructor, you did really well, and you know, maybe not so much for the crowd that's watching, but if anybody sees this on replay, or if there's actually anybody in the chat that's new to the hobby, I mean, that's something that I can't stress enough. Even with all the new technology out there, like safe and auto leveling and what have you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that makes flying the plane easier. But at the end of the day, you are the pilot in command, and you're the one flying it, even with safe, right? So, I mean, nothing is going to get you flying better than having an instructor that's engaged and really knows what they're doing. And you know, and that's one of the things that you know, that I attribute to myself being able to get, you know, and I'm certainly not good. I suck too, but. You know, I've only been flying airplanes for about 5 years now. I've been in RC for a lot longer, but you know, it was surface for the first, you know, 30 years of me playing around with these things. You know, so when I transitioned to airplanes, I was able to get an instructor, a very good instructor who's also a pilot in the Air Force. You know, I mean, I got very lucky. And was able to learn how to fly really quick at what I would consider an accelerated pace, and you know, and now I'm flying jets and all kinds of crazy stuff, helicopters, you name it.
Right.
And thankfully, you know, because of the sound lessons that instructor, you know, taught me, I was able to, you know, he instilled a lot of really good habits that I still you know, that I still practice today, and I've only crashed a couple of planes. You know, it's not like I was crashing every single time I went up like you were for the first, you know, several years in the hobby. So
yeah, I'm dead honest when I say it was really bad, because it was horrible.
Right. So you know, I'd say that you know, for the guys that are in the chat and anybody that sees this on replay, you know, heed that advice. That's really good. To find yourself an instructor, somebody that's willing to help. And, the thing is that, like, the guy that taught me to fly, 4 or 5 years ago, he and I still talk all the time today, and I can still bounce advice off of him. And that's one of the great things about this hobby is a lot of the friendships that you make. I mean, those are lasting friendships that are just going to go on forever. So that's good advice.
Yep.
Are you like banging pots around over there?
I don't know what all the noise is. I don't know if it's me or there's somebody out doing yard work and the windows open.
Oh, oh, oh.
Oops.
I was like, my wife might
Yeah.
be upstairs, banging pots around just to
No.
aggravate us.
Yeah.
So that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now I know that there's a couple of other things that you do. Before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes of the discussion. And start talking about like the Firey Booties, the Afterburners, the thing that everybody knows you for now.
Yeah.
Um, can you kind of take us back and talk a little bit about, obviously you have a passion for RC, but now you're making these Firey Booties, you're making these Afterburners for our
Hmm.
planes. You know, I don't imagine that you were always flying electric planes. So what was
Yeah.
kind of
No.
your introduction to electric planes?
Well, so I mean, this is funny. This is something that I said when I was working back in the early, I think 98, 99. I was working as a sales job and I was in a sales meeting, and I just found out that my wife was pregnant with my first child, and they asked, what were your plans for the future? And I said, well, I had a whole bunch of plans, and everything just changed.
Right.
so, I guess it was kind of that way with RC too. Once I had my wife had her first child in 2000. I was still flying a lot. I'd been working with kids in the local community, and this guy who was a teacher. I was helping a lot of working with him in a program that was helping kids in the area um, get into RC and do better, something positive instead of out getting into trouble. So I was doing that. Um, so I was still flying RC. I had nitro planes. I was building kits. I only had one plane at a time back then because that's all you could do unless you were a multimillionaire at the time. But I only had one plane that I'd fly, and then I had the plane that I'd help this guy with the kids, and then I teach kids how to fly on buddy box and other stuff too. Then my son came along, and I stopped flying as much as I did before. And then basically from 2000 till about 2008, I was still flying occasionally nitro, but only occasionally because I was spending time with the kids. Because then not too long after that, I had my second son. So 2000, 2002, we had, two kids. So not until about 2008, I got a new job a long ways away from where we were before, the job that I have now. Sorry if you hear noise. There's a blower in the background and my cat's going crazy. Um, but so I got another job in another area, and then where I moved out to where I am now here in the Bay Area, there was no place to fly wherever you wanted, whenever you wanted, because I was out in the country before I could do whatever the heck I wanted. So there was no nitro, there was no gas, and then this is when lipos had just really started taking off. So there's this park not too far from where we live called Bayland, and there are a lot of guys that were flying there, and it was just an open field. They didn't, there was no AMA sanctioned field or anything. They just go out there and fly. And there was a guy there selling batteries out of his truck because they were just getting popular. I don't remember if they were Tenergy or Kokum or something. But he basically said, hey, if you've flown nitro stuff, that's pretty much going by the wayside now. lipos are taking over. Brushless motors are out now, and there's all these things. I'd seen brush motors in the past with gearboxes, and some of them barely flew. But he was out flying, and he had a pylon racer that day, and the thing was doing like 170 miles an hour,
Wow.
flying on a 3S pack. So that pretty much, I'm like, whoa, well, show me what it is that you do, and how do we figure it out? And kind of started over again with electric, and we went through another phase of race sucking really bad again. So I didn't know what C rating or any of that crap meant, and I just saw packs. So I'm like, oh, let me buy this. So I got a couple planes off of eBay, a couple foam planes, and crashed the crap out of them. Because I didn't know what the C ratings meant, I got a 10C pack for, it could only draw 25 amps comfortably, and the plane I had was pulling almost 40. And I crashed the crap out of that because the plane browned out because I ended up overdoing the battery. So then it was a whole new learning curve of starting things all over. So basically about 2008, that's when everything transitioned. I got good at it at about 2009, 2010, basically 2009. And that's when brushless and lipos and all that stuff really took off, and I figured it out. I was working with batteries for a living at that point, but they were lead acid stuff, and it wasn't the lipos. But still, I had battery basics figured out, and then I started figuring out how all this stuff worked. Next thing, and then I started going crazy with stuff. That's when it started with the electrics.
Right. Right. So that was kind of the segue into you working with working with small electronics and things like that as well, or were you doing that as part of your job at the time?
I was doing that as part of my job at the time. I'm a mechanic, so we had just, and I worked for the Department of Energy, so we had just started. It depends on who's.
Sorry.
Hi, dog.
My dog is going crazy. He's an idiot.
It depends on who's in office at the time for when you work for the Department of Energy or anything government. So we had just been transitioning into using more renewable energy. So I was the guy who ended up working with the newer electric stuff, because there was older electric stuff, but I worked with the newer stuff, and that's when it started, about that time.
Right. So, when I assume before you decided to start selling products, to the masses, that you must have made a bunch of stuff for yourself before you decided that it was good enough to, for other people to see it. How long ago did you start kind of tinkering around with, with electronics and adding, things like that? Well, integrating, you're tinkering with electronics into your airplanes.
So that started probably around 2010, maybe a little bit earlier. There's a hobby shop here called Aero Micro. And they were pretty much the go-to place for anything RC at the time. Anything cutting edge RC. So they had this little setup, and I'll even show you guys. These are some of the older LEDs. They had
all right.
There's a guy. There's a guy here named.
Stuff here. I gotta get close to the camera so I can see it. That's gonna help.
So there's. Well, this is an LED strip.
Yeah.
They had a whole bunch of these, and there was a guy here named Mike Bounds who formed a company called Battlewing.
Right, and that strip there, that's just a single color LED, right? They didn't have RGB lighting back then?
No, it wasn't RGB, just single. And this one here, this is just a regular white one. But he had a whole board in his shop that had all these different color LEDs, and he had a brushed ESC and a servo tester. And I looked at that and I'm like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. And the brushed ESC is the thing that got me, because I'm like, okay, so then that means that I could plug this into the main power of the battery and then use one of the channels to to actuate it like a switch.
Right.
And I can control the brightness and all of that stuff with it. So that's when it started. And there were GWS. I wish I could still get those things because they're awesome. There are brushed ESCs for GWS planes. I don't know if you've ever heard of GWS, yeah. But there were some of they were super small. They're probably only about this big, and you could get a 2 amp because the LEDs only pull about 400 to 500 milliamps.
Right.
So 2 amp was overrated. So I got those ESCs. I bought up as many as I could. They were like $10, $15 each. And then the first plane that I ever covered with lights was my Cessna. I had a Dynam Skytrainer, and I covered it with lights, with LEDs. Started out with one strip along the wings. Next thing, I still have the plane. Next thing you know, it's got 180 LEDs on it.
Right.
So it's got the right colors on the wings. The whole plane is illuminated. So that's what started. That's when it started with LEDs. Then I did that. Then a friend of mine did it. And then let's see. From there, I got the GV, and I put lights on the GV. So then that's kind of where it started. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can control the brightness with the LED just by changing, where it is on the radio. So then I got onto Hobby Parts and bought a whole bunch of LEDs.
Right.
So was able to get all these different colors. See what I have in here now. This is just a recent order too. I just recently bought these. But I got a whole bunch of colors, and the next thing you know, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, maybe I could use this as an afterburner. So I just started getting into EDFs about 2010, 2011. And I had a little L39, and I said, let me try an afterburner with it. And I got a little strip of one of these same strips, but it was yellow. Mm-hmm. And put that into my little 50 millimeter L39 and had everything put in line, and it all worked. That's kind of where it started. I've even got a video of it. I should probably put the video in there.
Yeah. So now on that one, was that like a ring afterburner that just went right at the end of the nozzle?
It could have been. All I wanted to do was light up the whole, light up the exhaust. So I made a little channel in the foam, and then just laid this in there, put tape over it so it was like it wasn't there. And that's how it worked.
Sorry.
So that's where it started. I mean, that was the first of probably 4 or 5 that I did. Then not too long after that, I think it was 2014 or 15, I did the same thing with an F5, and that was a ring, but it was inside, and I wanted it to look more realistic. So I made, the F5 doesn't have a really bright afterburner in real life. Right. So I wanted it to be more of a, more representative of what the real thing looked like. So I made it kind of a purplish blue color.
Right.
So, and it was on the inside, and it was a ring, and it was right behind the fan. So that's kind of where it started, and then it just evolved from there.
Right. Yeah, because I think that there's probably a lot of folks in the chat. We got it looks like we got 52 people in here right now watching us. So.
Oh, nice.
So
hit the like button, guys.
Right. And I wanted to take a second, to just kind of say hi to everybody and catch up on the chat a little bit, because I geek out on this stuff. So just listening to you talk about it, I'll just ignore everything else and be like, yeah, Ray, tell me all about it.
Yeah, I don't want to bore everybody. I get a little overly technical.
No, I think it's great. Tell me all about it, Ray. Yeah.
Oh, I want to know.
What was that about brushy ESCs?
Yeah.
So listen, I wanted to say thanks to all the people that are here tonight. If you don't know who this is that we're talking to, this is Ray, also known as Gooniac 33 here on YouTube, and he is the guy that makes a lot of the afterburners that we're seeing these days. which are LED arrays that get mounted either to the EDF unit, or in the case of in-runner motors, it just mounts right to the back of the in-runner motor. Ray's got one of the EDF units there that he's kind of showing off. And these things are awesome, guys, and we're gonna start talking about those here in a little bit. But I wanted to say hi to all the folks, and thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Be sure to hit the notification icon so you're notified when these things pop up, because apparently there's been some problems with notifications here lately. But make sure you get subscribed to the channel. We've got a bunch of new content coming up here in the very near future, which is going to be really cool and also very geeky and technical. The kind of stuff that I like. And also, if you guys have any questions for Ray or for myself, be sure to put those in the chat. I am, kind of following along with the chat. Mike SSI, he says that people are used to me ignoring them. I don't ignore everybody. But be sure to put your questions in there, and if Ray or I, if we get on a roll, I'll try to to get back to those questions. Or if it feels like we're ignoring you, just keep putting your question over and over again, and I'm pretty sure we'll answer it. We'll be like, oh my God, that guy is just blowing the chat away. He really wants to know the answer to that.
He's rambling. Oh my God.
Right. This guy just won't shut up. So, when you were talking about getting into electric airplanes, I noticed that you had mentioned that you didn't know anything about batteries, you didn't know anything about C ratings, and that seems to be, Jermaine Spencer, that's not a bad idea. But there's going to be people that just type in in all caps all the time anyway. So hopefully it'll help.
I'm trying to look too. So if you miss something, just keep saying it over and over again.
Yeah, right.
Eventually.
So you had mentioned that you didn't know anything about batteries, milliamp hours, C ratings, none of that stuff. And these days, certainly you've been at it for about 10 years now with electrics. And it would certainly seem like you're much more, much more in tune with all that stuff means now. And I know that was something that, that you've been, kind of preaching about lately, or not necessarily preaching, but, I know that it's a topic of conversation that's certainly interesting to you, because there's so many folks out there that, that may not understand exactly how batteries work and the milliamp hour to C rating relationships, and what does that C rating mean? Why do we need higher C ratings for higher amp draws, et cetera, et cetera? Is that something that you'd want to touch about real quick? Like, I know that's something that, where were we the other night? That topic came up.
Yeah, it's one of those things I always chime in about, because I'm pretty passionate about it. It's just the way that I work, and the way I have worked. Once I figured it out, how electric motors work and how, the C ratings and all that other stuff, I just try to translate what, I don't even know if it translates the words. I just try to show people what's worked for me, and how the things that I do have worked really well. If you see the way that I fly, if you see the planes that I fly, and a lot of people, when they see my stuff, they're kind of blown away at how it works and how well they fly and all that. And then I tell them that I'm flying with the 30C pack, and their jaw goes to the floor. They're like, "What do you mean you're flying an EDF with a 30C pack? What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "Well, you saw the plane, right? You see what it can do. So what's the problem? It's a 30C pack." "Yeah, that's right." I'm like, "Well, how the hell do you do that? It's not supposed to work that way." I'm like, "Well, it does. The thing for me, the first plane that I really did that with was the F5. When it comes to EDFs, that's when I really started getting the hang of it, because I was just going off of what everybody else was doing at the time. And even this fan right here. This is the newer free wing fan. I think this is the one from the A4, no, the L39. But this fan, it's an outrunner. And it uses, it draws probably right around 80 amps, 70 to 80 amps at full throttle. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, I was looking for batteries. I just started getting into 6S stuff. So I only had chargers that could do, 50 watts per channel.
Right.
And then that's when wheels started turning and I started figuring out all these watts and all that other stuff. But anyway, so I had to figure out ways to do it. So then I was putting batteries in series to make them work. I had 4000 3S that I put in series. Actually, it was 4500s I started with. And I'm like, if this plane's only going to be pulling 80 amps, why would I need to get this crazy high-C battery? I'm like, let me see how it works. So I ended up getting a 45 from China Hobby Line because they just started at the time. Two 3S 30C 4500 packs because I wanted to see how they worked. And what do you know? They worked wonderful in the plane. Other people had, they were using 50 and 70C packs. I don't think it was 70 at the time. I think it was 60C. 50 and 60C packs. And what do you know? I was flying longer and still maintaining the same amount of speed, but they had to land before I did. And sometimes people were actually running out of power before they were able to land. So then I started figuring out the batteries wouldn't come down hot. They wouldn't come down there's nothing wrong with them. It's just, the plane's only going to draw 80 amps. So why would you need to go crazy high C? Because those batteries that I was using could comfortably do over 150 amps. So that's kind of where it started. I'm like, oh, okay. Number one, they're cheap. Number two, they're light. And there's no point in going crazy high C if you see how it works and what it's going to do. And I wasn't flying slow. I was still flying fast. So that's kind of where it began. So I just, I always tell people go off of the load, don't go off of the C rating. So like with this pack here, this is something I don't normally do. This is a high C pack, but it was a good deal. And I'm like, I need some packs to go crazy with sometimes if I want to go really stupid fast. But see, that's the thing. With this pack, you can go really crazy fast, but since it's a low C rating, the internal resistance is lower. You're going to get more amps out of it. When you get more amps out of a battery, that means you're draining it faster.
Right.
So, and the way that the curve works with these batteries is that they put out all this power and then boom, they drop off. So these batteries are awesome. They work great. But if you're the kind of person that wants to fly full throttle all the time, you're going to hit a cliff and you're going to fall off of that cliff at the end. So it just depends. I'm not that kind of person. I do that sometimes because I bought these packs, but it's not too often that I do. Most of the packs I use are going to be 30 and 40C. Even I have a big F15 that draws 150 amps, and I'll use a 6S 30C 6200 in that. And people are like, "Why are you using such a low C? I don't need more. I know how to use the throttle."
Amps.
Exactly. So I think it's 180 something, maybe a little under 200, but still, if you don't fly full throttle, you're fine. There's no point. It's extra weight. So it's a balance. With the low C stuff, they're lighter. So yeah, you're not going to get the crazy high RPMs that you would with the high C pack, but it's going to stay consistent and you're going to have lighter weight. So you're going to be able to do more with it. So it just depends. Depends on how you want to do it.
Right.
It's a balance. It's a balancing act.
Yep. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, and I don't know how often you're hooking up, amp meters and stuff like, or watt meters to airplanes. But one of the things that I have noticed is that, typically, so EDFs and prop planes, behave completely different. In the way that they draw power and the way that they, like static load or static, static versus dynamic, loaded and unloaded, power, current draws and things like that, where, like a propeller, once the airplane or once the propeller becomes unloaded, like the airplane picks up speed and it's generating maximum thrust, the current draw is going to drop tremendously. Where with like an EDF, it doesn't drop off anywhere near as much.
Barely at all.
Right.
Barely at all. Yeah.
Right. Which is why, like on a propeller, we can fly a propeller plane for a long time, because once you're up, even at max throttle, your current draw will drop from, say, 80 amps down to maybe 20. It's using like a quarter or a half of the thrust that it would be using on say takeoff, or like a vertical climb or something like that, where with an EDF. Now the converse of that is like a propeller driven plane can pull a lot more current on when it's doing something insane, like on a static pull. The disparity of max current draw and minimum current draw, like an unloaded versus loaded, you can be talking huge numbers there. Where with an EDF, that static or a fully loaded, current draw may be 120 amps, and your unloaded current draw is still going to be like 100.
Right. Or probably even less than that. It's going to be even, there's going to be less of a difference between the two with EDF.
Right.
Now that's when it gets weird, though, and it's the same thing with prop planes. If you have a plane that has an over square prop where there's more pitch than, the pitch number is higher than the actual diameter number, it's weird how that works, because it works like a boat. I don't know if you know anything about boats, but with cavitation, like when boat motors, they'll be in the water and they have too much pitch, and you hit the throttle, they make a whole lot of noise and nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, boom, they take off. So during that whole cavitation phase, there's hardly any amp draw or any load on the motor.
Right.
But as soon as it gets bite and takes off, that's when everything changes. It's kind of the same with prop planes too. So if you have a prop plane, like you usually see this with either pattern planes that are electric, or what are they, hotliners, where they have those really high pitch numbers. On the ground, there may not be much of a load, but as soon as the air gets in there, then it shoots through the roof. EDFs there are some EDFs that do that too. It's the EDFs that have really high pitch in their blades. The blades have a lot of pitch and there's not much intake air. So once they get moving forward, then all of a sudden they get loaded up because they're able to get the air in there that they need. But for the most part, I don't choose EDFs that work that way. I did that. I did have some that way in the beginning, but I choose them differently now. But prop planes, yeah, you see that a lot with those, especially when you run them up on the ground. This is another thing people don't know with batteries too. Like with the 3S pack, you know how they say it's the 3S pack is 11.1 volts, but when you charge them, they end up being 4.2 volts per cell. So another thing, so like when you're running them up on the ground, it's nominal voltage. So even when it's under a load, it's supposed to be 3.7 volts.
Sure.
So if you're running up a plane or anything electric on the ground, you want that to be at the nominal voltage or above. Above is better, but you don't want it to go much below the nominal voltage. Otherwise, you're stressing the pack. So that's another thing that I used to do with these packs too. So like that's what I was saying with the 30C packs. I was able to figure out that, hey, if they're still 3.78 volts per cell at full throttle, why am I worrying about going to a crazy high C when they're not stressed at all? There's no point.
Right.
So that's another thing.
Yeah, and some of the guys in the chat are saying that I know about boats. Just because I was in the Navy doesn't mean I know about propellers, fellas.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a few boats, but I never was really into it that much. That was when NICADs and nickel metal hydrides were the thing.
Yeah,
I never
and
understood that,
I have been around boats, and I know that they are measured the same way as an aircraft propeller, where they've got a diameter and pitch, and the pitch is based on like how many inches it will move with a
Yeah,
like a
single
single
revolution.
rotation of the motor, right?
Yeah.
So, um, and that's always been interesting to me. Is I know that there are calculators out there, and I've talked about them on my channel before. Things like eCalc. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if you've ever used that or however, how often
Yeah,
you.
I've used it.
Yeah, and it's great for like scratch builds, or if you're upgrading from like a 3S to 4S power systems or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, it's awesome. It's an awesome tool. But somebody did all the calculations, and I'm sure it's all it's all based on theoretical math. They're not doing
Yeah.
anything. Like they didn't actually go out and test every single one of these. They're just going off of the specified numbers.
Right.
Um, and I guess at some point, if I was really planning on geeking out on it, and I have no desire to really, but
It's all right.
but I have no desire to go out there and figure out like all the formulas that they used in that type of application, which is why I don't mind paying like $5 a year to use eCalc, um, because it's a phenomenal tool. But
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about like the pitch and diameter of a propeller, and the load that puts on a motor, it's really interesting to me to see how those numbers can shift in something like eCalc. Because something as small as say a half-inch pitch change, can have a dramatic effect on the amount of current that's getting pulled, and or an inch of diameter. Drop an inch of diameter and watch what happens.
Right.
Drop an inch of pitch and see what happens. I mean, usually it's pretty dramatic. Um,
Yeah, it is.
to see how those things can affect each other.
Yeah.
So
And it depends on the type of aircraft or whatever it is you're doing too. 'Cause the type of plane makes all the difference in the world. If you've
yep.
got a plane that's slow or a plane that's fast,
So sorry, folks, about my dog. Freaking yapping. He's a terrible human. he's got no he's got no consideration for anybody. Um,
Here, I'll show you my cat. She's been coming over here brushing my leg every few seconds. There she is. So
right.
she's quiet, but she's there.
Awesome. So listen, I don't have super chats yet because I suck and I haven't reached 1,000 subs. I still got like 200 more to go or something like that. But I did want to give a shout out to Dave Kowishki and to Fred Barron RC, who have sent some contributions in through PayPal tonight. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. So Chuck G, the link to PayPal is going to be in the description of the video, and it's also in the ticker along the bottom of the stream. So if you look at the little ticker there, it's not a link that you can click on, but it's got the URL there if you'd like to make a contribution. So, and Dave Kowishki, thank you, man. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. A giveaway. Wow, Bill, you crazy. We're always doing giveaways, man.
Well, giveaways are cool. I like them. And it gets people all excited, and it's so much fun. I know it's a pain to set up, but still, I enjoy it.
I have a blast doing it. Right now, I'm because of the COVID-19 crap, and I don't like crying or whatever, but I did lose my job, which sucks.
Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, I don't let it get me down, man. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff out there. So, but the point is that when we get to 1,000, if that happens, within, if it happens before I get another job, fellas, unless I have some serious sponsorship for a 1,000 sub giveaway that's going to wait, I do plan on doing something special when we hit 1,000 subs, but a giveaway will have to wait until I've got a job again.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because I do want to give away something nice for that one. We've done something nice for, and by nice I mean something like a DX9 or I mean something that someone will be able to use and appreciate for many many years. A free subscription to my channel. Listen, you guys are winners on that giveaway every single week, every day, really.
Yeah, hey, I want to give a quick shout out too, because Fred Barron, I didn't realize how long he'd been subscribed to me, but he's always been here for everybody. I always see him dropping huge amounts in super chats, but he's been commenting on my stuff for years. I didn't even realize it. I went back and looked at something from 6 years ago, and he's commented on it still. Yeah. Shout out to you, Fred.
Absolutely. Fred Barron is one of those staples of the RC YouTube community, and the entire community is so thankful for what Fred does for all of us, to help keep these channels kind of chunking along and all that stuff. It's awesome. So Wild Bill, that's funny. Tom's got a bunch of names now. And on my video that I just posted today, Tom, that bastard, that guy freaking commented on my video like before it even stopped processing. Before a video was even visible on YouTube, that turd was in there saying, "Hey, great video, like, you shut your mouth, Tom." It's Tom from freaking MySpace, dude. He's trying to make a comeback. I guess you kind of got to be an old school internet guy to know that.
Good old MySpace.
Yep. Tom. That bastard. Yeah, I move him to me.
Look to the side looking at you like,
yeah, with the phone numbers on the whiteboard back there.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I tried calling him once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked old MySpace where I could, edit the CSS scripts and like add things to my page and add little music players and little embedded videos and girls flashing boobies and there was all kinds of fun stuff that you could do with MySpace.
Then it would get deleted and you'd have to start all over again.
Yeah, but they didn't care how many accounts you had, man. It was fun.
That's true. You can have as many as you want.
Yep. So that was fun back in the day. So listen, I think that we're that we kind of have gone through everything that you've done, kind of leading up to where you are today with, kind of, I don't know if we'd call it a startup or how long you've been, doing Afterburners where you've been selling them. But I can tell you for the folks that are here in the chat, and we've still got 58 in here. That's awesome.
Jeez, that's cool. 41 likes. More likes.
Yeah, we need more likes, fellas. Hit that like button. Guys, we got Gooniac in here, for Christ's sake.
Do it for me, man.
Yeah, do it for Gooniac. Hit the like button.
Yeah, I don't want to see any. There better not be no thumbs downs after saying that, damn it.
There will be. Dennis Farley always leaves a thumbs down for me because he's a great guy. Hey, YouTube sees it as community engagement, even if it is a thumbs down. So I'll take it. Dennis,
okay,
you dirty bastard.
Any interaction is good, right? So who cares?
Right. So listen, for the folks that are here, I have received a couple of Afterburners from Ray. That's why I have this beautiful beast behind me today. And I don't know if this was a first for you, Ray, or if this was something that anyone had ever asked for before, but Ray, built me, or I mean, built, he built all of them, but he made a special green afterburner for me for my Havoc. After I got this thing, because I'll be honest with you guys, when I bought the Havoc, it was when they were doing a buy the Havoc, get a free smart battery. I was still building up my collection of smart batteries, and I was like, well, they're giving away $130 smart battery with this $400 airplane that I would have paid for the battery anyway. I have no desire to really get the plane, but at 400 bucks. But I'll pay 300 bucks for that plane. I'll pay 275 for that plane all day and take the free battery. You know what I'm saying? I'll say that I paid for the battery. So I went ahead and bought the Havoc because I just thought they were butt ugly. And, it's not a bad looking airplane. Like the lines are good, but I didn't care for the color until I got it in my hands and I was looking at it and I was like, dude, this green is way better than I thought. It's
Yeah.
awesome. It's a really good looking plane. Um, but I guess you just have to be there in person when you're looking at it. But, I sent Ray a message on Facebook and was like, hey, man, you know what would be badass if you could make me a green afterburner? And like 2 weeks later, I've got a box that I'm opening up with a green afterburner in it. And it was the greatest thing I ever saw in my life, dude. Every time I find,
I think you thought that I was joking. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I think I can do it.
dude, and I am thrilled every time I fire up this plane and that green Firey Booty turns on in the back. Man, I am just thrilled. And the other thing that I will say is that it was a breeze to install. There's nothing to calibrate. It's all plug and play. You just boop boop. It's like 2, 3 connections, and you run a wire through the fuselage. I mean, you're pretty much done. The
Yep,
hardest part is pulling out the EDF and mounting it to the back.
that's the
Um,
hardest.
so
And it's the running the wire was a pain, and then I've
yeah,
even got that down now, but still, it's
yep.
pretty easy.
So I just wanted to kind of to offer up a little praise before Ray starts talking about when he started making these things, and just tell you guys that if you didn't know, Ray makes afterburners and they kick ass. And he'll make sweet custom colors for you.
Yeah, yeah. I've had a lot of people asking about the new plane that just came out from E-Flight, the A10. Um, it's got an outrunner, so it's a little harder. So let me just segue into that.
Yeah,
I
man.
have right in front of me. This is, like I said earlier, this is the L39 pre-wing L39 EDF unit. Most planes, this is I think one of the first that did an outrunner this way. So as you can see here, the outrunner is actually inside. So it's mounted basically reverse of what it normally is. Normally there's an outrunner hanging out here that spins around. Well, on this one, Freewing had an idea to flip things around, and it's kind of cool the way they did it. So the motor's inside. It helps with cooling because the fan's blowing over the whole thing the whole time. And then they have this little thing in the back, which really doesn't do anything other than sort of clean up the air. So this is what got me thinking and what got me started on doing the burners for the newer stuff. There's already one out before me that had, something that connected here, but I'm like, I like doing things simple. So this thing comes off. There's two little 1.5 millimeter hex screws
Yeah, there's like
that
little
pops
grub
off.
screws in there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that pops off. Now give me a second. I got to go pick up something else. I'm going to keep talking. So that thing comes off, and I'm like, I wonder if there's a way that we can make things fit in there, make it work. Let me go grab a. Now I got to give another shout out because Dustin Hallman is the one who helps me make these. The adapters for the freewing units come from him.
Right.
He helped me. We got together and we worked on. He threw a couple ideas at me.
Right, and for those of you that don't know who
Raven
Ray just
Rock.
mentioned, he said Dustin Holloman. That is Raven Rock Machine and Aviation, who is the uglier half of the Flight Club show that's going to be airing tomorrow night with Jeff's Custom RC. And I love Skippy, man. He's a good guy. So Raven Rock Machine and Aviation is Dustin Holloman, who is making the Outrunner adapters for Ray. So
so as I was saying, see this little cone here? That thing comes off, and this is what goes in its place. Dustin helped figure this out. This is all his genius. But I came up with the idea, and he turned it into something. This one's for a 90 millimeter for like the F-18 that Dave has behind him on the wall. But this is for a 90 millimeter, but they look the same, just a little bit bigger. And it screws. There's little screws right there, screw holes. The exact same thing that goes in there comes out of there, goes into this, and it replaces it. So, and on top of that, there's cooling holes, so you don't have to worry about anything overheating. Although the way that motor is made, this doesn't really do anything anyway. There's hardly anything that goes through there. But so then this is what got me started on making them for the free wings. So I started using these, again, thanks to Raven Rock Machining for doing this. But this is what started it for these planes, because everybody was asking about free wing plane, because the most popular planes at the time were free wings.
Sure.
So, and I had a couple myself, a lot of them. I have a whole bunch of EDFs, in case you guys haven't noticed.
What?
I'm a little addicted to the hobby of EDFs, but so much so till I got 5 here in the living room. But anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much what did it. I've been messing with LED arrays and figuring out which ones work best. I have another one here. This is one of the most popular ones out right now. This is the FMS/E-Flight 80 millimeter fan, and this is the newest LED array. Now, one thing that I always like to bring up, this is an out.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just going to point out, because I recognize the difference. I've got that same 80 millimeter Outrunner or Inrunner in the Havoc, and then the Outrunner in the F-18. So they were two very different styles of mounts used for the motors.
Right.
And I noticed that what you're holding there is an Inrunner. I was going to see if you could touch on the difference between how the Outrunner mounts and how the Inrunner mounts. Yeah,
sure, I can do that. So I got them both. That's why I had them here. So as I was saying, with the Outrunner, the motor spins on the inside. So the actual motor, I don't know if there's any way to see that in there.
There is there is like a little crack on the side.
Yeah, a little crack there. The whole thing is spinning. Yeah, right in there. Yeah.
Yep, the whole can of the motor spins around. Yep.
Yeah, the whole thing spins. So this is a unique plane, and this is a unique motor, like I said, because they had it. So the motor is spinning there all inside. But you're able to use this cone. So this just mounts directly on. There's no gluing, no nothing.
Right.
You just pull these little screws out, pull those out. Everything that I send to you comes pre-assembled, ready to go. The wire's even put in the right place so that it lines up with this. So then you put that there, screw it on, and you're done. Right. And then you zip tie the wire. So that's it.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the things that I know when Dave's RC did his video and when I did mine on the F-18, we were looking at the mount and looking at the vents in the mount for the Outrunner, and I'm like, do I need to put the wires through the vents, so it doesn't get pinched? And then when I started looking at it,
Dave was like, getting ready to cut stuff. Getting ready to cut stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm yelling at the thing, don't cut it, it's all right, don't cut it. I'm typing in all fast.
It's
like,
cool,
no,
don't do it. Yeah, so Dave did his live, And I remember watching
Yeah.
that show, and you know, I'm glad that because I had mine when he was doing that show, and I'm glad that I watched that show that night because that's when I was like, oh, that's what you do. Because I wasn't gonna install it. I was like, well, shit, did he mess it up? Did he forget to put the wires through the
Right.
vents?
Wires wrong? Oh no, he did it wrong. No, I I did it that way on purpose. So the original ones that I first did, they used this actual cone. And so I knew just by looking at where the wire mounts. This is upside down now. Or is it upside? I don't know. This is anyway. It's wrong. I knew that by looking at where it mounts, where the wire needed to come out.
Right.
So that's just the way I do it from now on. I see that they're, this one's moved. It actually should be over the other way. But I was able to figure out, okay, it needs to be turned this little bit to line up the wire so it'll go right through. And that's it. So that's the FMS. I mean, not the FMS. That's the Free Wing Outrunner. And this one's made out of metal, but the 9-blade fan for the 80 millimeter, that one's plastic, and it's made a little bit different. It screws in a little bit differently. Let me grab the adapter. I have one here, so you can see. Again, made by Dustin, Raven Rock, but this one screws in that way. So it's a little bit different, but it is all screw on, and it works the same.
Yep.
Again, this is made by Raven Rock, and look at how awesome that is, guys. I
Now,
told him what I wanted,
did
and he did it.
did Dustin do the CAD drawings for it, or is he actually doing the manufacturing as well?
He does both.
Nice.
So
So he just
he
mails
figured
you
out
like a
how.
box of those things?
Yeah, when I run out, I tell him I need them, and he sends them to me.
Nice, nice.
That's it. But yeah, so that's it. This is for the 9-blade, 80 millimeter Free Wing. It mounts a little different because it's a plastic fan, but it's actually better than what it comes stock. But then it has an afterburner in there, so it's even better. But
Well,
yeah, so that's it.
everything is better with an afterburner.
Of course, you need that. Now, and that's something else too that I want to talk about because I've always kind of been into. I don't want to say aerodynamics, because I'm not an engineer. I'm just a mechanic. But I pay attention to how things work. I'm able to balance these things just by feel. I don't even have to have an actual unit to do it. I know how to do it just by the way it feels. So I pay attention to the way air and other things go. I can tell when a fan's happy, when it's not. I can tell when it's not getting enough air, or if it's getting, or if it's working too hard. But one of the things I do notice is that with a lot of the other, afterburners that are out there, they actually hurt the thrust, because anytime with anything air, anything fan related, EDF related, you don't want anything obstructing the flow. So see the way that this is tapered like that? That's actually a good design, because that means the air isn't going to go over a flat spot and create turbulence, which sucks away your thrust. So even this isn't the best because there's a flat spot there. That's actually going to cause a little bit more. It's going to disturb the airflow. So when you put my afterburner on there, it actually cleans things up a little bit, because it makes it, the unit that I use, see how it's round?
Mm-hmm.
When you have things that are round in the airstream, it helps. It makes the air is able to go out cleaner. So when you put mine in, you're actually helping a little bit. So not only are you going to get the air out of there that you need, you're going to get more cooling, but when the afterburner is attached, that actually cleans up the way that things run out. It looks kind of funny, but that actually cleans up the air. The FMS fans, I don't have an FMS fan. The 90 millimeter fans have this special little cone that goes on the back. I think I might have one that cleans up the air. So if you have an outrunner, then it's just a motor, or if you have a motor that's just kind of hanging off the back, it's really not that aerodynamic. It works, and it'll work fine. But with this setup, because normally there's just a motor here, but with this setup, it's actually cleaning up the airflow out the rear, because of this shape. And don't laugh at me for what I'm doing, but yeah, this is actually a better shape for airflow. If it's a flat spot, or if there's any kind of, or anything that goes way out into the airstream, and I try to make it so that the see the motor's right there. This is the fins. I try to make it so that they're even. Now with this little zip tie, you don't even really have to zip tie it. You can just glue it. There's glue there. But the zip tie, you put it in line with the wires because the wires would already be in the way anyway. So it's not going to affect anything. But this cleans up the airflow. Believe it or not, I haven't really done full-on scientific testing, but I did it with a friend of mine with his plane, and he noticed the difference. I could hear the difference between having my setup in there and another one. There is a difference in the way that putting stuff in the exhaust stream or the airstream. Putting stuff, if you put stuff in the airstream, you want it to be a certain shape so that it won't affect anything.
Right.
And that's what mine do.
So Jeff and Josh are on to me. They're like, they say that I'm eyeballing that thing. So maybe I was, Jeff. What of it? So
let me hide it from them.
So one of the questions that I noticed was somebody asking, and I assume that this is for the in runner setup, like on the FMS, and even the new like free wing in runners. I'm sure mount the same way because that one's a little easier mounting mechanism. You just pop it right on the can of the motor. They were asking if if you have any issues with the CA melting from the heat of the motor.
Nope. CA can do a lot more than you think. Now the good thing is that the CA, I don't have a motor. I'm not going to pull this off, but the CA will hold it in place, but it's not permanent, and it won't stick to this motor, regardless of what the motor is. If I were to pry just a little bit, it's going to pop off. So, and you can see kind of right here how that glue is not the same color as the motor, which means it's broken off. This is one that I'm actually going to pull off eventually because it's broken. But the glue comes right off. CA, and I use thick CA, which has become some of my favorite because it works really well.
Yeah, and you get a little more work time out of it too, I found.
Exactly. Yeah, it doesn't set right away. And the cool thing is you can put it on. You don't even have to spray accelerator, and it'll stay where it is and then set right there. But I use the thick stuff, the Bob Smith thick Maxi Cure, and then I have accelerator too. But don't use foam tack; it won't hold.
Right.
Yeah, and if you're using CA, use regular CA. Don't use foam safe. But yeah, it doesn't hurt, and it pops right off if you decide you don't want it to be on there. I don't know why you wouldn't want it on there, but if you decide that you don't want it on, it just pops off.
Sure.
Pretty easy to do.
Yep, and I know when I was installing mine on the Havoc, and I actually have a 3D printer myself, so I'm pretty familiar with like the PLA Plus materials that are being used to manufacture the adapters that are used for these things. So what I was going to mention is I broke mine when I was installing it, but having worked with with PLA, I know from that experience that the same CA that we use, I use like BSI, Bob Smith Industries. I use medium gap filling CA. I don't use the thick stuff, but I mean, you still get quite a bit of working time out of the medium stuff, and it can still kind of seep into small cracks.
Yeah.
But I used that and just pressed it back together, shot it with some kicker, and just from my experience working with 3D printed materials, I broke it at one of the layer lines, and typically when you glue. With like a CA material, when you glue a 3D printed piece back together where it broke at the layer lines, that print is going to be stronger where the glue was.
Stronger.
And it may break again, but it's not going to break where that glue joint was. So
not on the same place. It'll break on another area. Yeah.
Right. So George Watts and actually a couple of other folks have asked how can they get a hold of you to order a an EDF unit, and I see that Dave Kowalski has posted the link to your Facebook page,
Thank you, Dave.
and Jeff's Custom RC has put your email address. So
Yeah.
you know, I think you may be getting a few folks.
Yeah, the best way to contact me, I mean, there's two ways, just as people post it there. I do respond right away with Facebook. I'm not right now because I'm using my phone for this, but I do respond right away with Facebook. I've actually responded through live streams too. And then my regular email address, that's one way too. It's easier for me to track you through the Facebook page, but yeah, just that. Now, everybody keeps asking, when are you going to do a website? When are you going to do a website? I don't plan on it at this point, simply because I want to be able to keep on top of it and keep, I make everything myself. I have my own little kit here where I work on stuff. It's just a little regular tackle box that I have other things in. I do it all myself. You know, I buy components, but I do all the soldering for everything. I make the adapters. I make all those myself. All the wiring, everything, you know, I'll go through. I do all that myself. So I don't want to do a website to where I have to actually have a full-on production to fill orders. I want to be able to do it myself, be able to talk to people individually, and work with everybody one-on-one. Basically, everybody that I've sold something to, I've actually talked to them personally through email or through chat. I want it to stay that way. I don't want it to be where I'm like this major production, just pumping things out, because that's not really what I'm about. Everything that I like, this came out of one of my own planes. I test it and I fly it and I do it all myself because I'm into it. It's not just because I want to make money on it. I'm doing it because it's fun. That's why I'm doing it. So yes, there's a little money made, but that's not the whole reason for me doing it. It's just to keep the hobby going, to keep, you know, I want it to be personal still. I don't want it to be, okay, well, I'm going to go to the website and click buy, and then I've got all these orders to do and I can't do it myself. I want it to stay the same for now. If it's going to change in the future, maybe it will, but for now, it's going to stay this way.
Sure. No, that makes sense. You know, I know that everybody that I'll tell you right now, I have never heard anybody say anything bad about a Gooniac Afterburner. Never. And that speaks volumes to that personal touch, you know, that you put on each one of them. And you know, coming from you know, an electronics background and having gone to, you know, school and wearing, you know, an engineer title, I'd say you did pretty damn good for a mechanic there, buddy. You did all right.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had to learn. Basically, my dad gave me the basics for soldering. He said, "Here, this is hot. This is the metal you melt. Put the two together." And that's, you know, that's basically what he said.
There you go. Melted
metal. And there you go. And he gave me one of those real big, the ones that are like a gun.
Yeah.
And which I don't use. I've never liked them.
Yeah, so that was my first experience with soldering back in, man, it was probably like 1990, 92, somewhere around there. I was probably 15 or 16 years old and had a big 200-watt Weller soldering gun. And, you know, you can't see it anymore. It's on one of my arms. I had the thing in like the trunk of a car because I was, you know, I had just gotten like my, you know, one of my first cars, or I was working on like my sister's car or something, putting speakers in the back deck of an old like Oldsmobile Cutlass or something, one of them big ass boat cars, you know, and you know, I'm sitting there like upside down, holding this speaker up and soldering, and I set the solder gun down on like the trunk of the car, and I get out and I go back in there and I'm leaning down, and my arm like goes right on top of the solder gun, and somewhere around there I've got like the perfect, and you know the shape of those stupid solder gun elements, right? You know, it's like a funky U shape, you know, where it like bolts in.
That's weird point.
Yeah. And you know, I can see it, and I'm sure it will never show up on the camera, but I've still got that scar to this day. You know, like 30 years later, where I where I burnt the shit out of my arm.
Yeah.
With one of them old 200-watt soldering guns.
God, they're horrible.
Yeah, they're a terrible way to solder, unless you're doing like huge stuff.
And even if you are, that's still the wrong thing. But yeah.
Right, right. I mean, they're really just a pain in the butt. But nowadays I'm using like a 40-watt soldering pin on a soldering station where I can adjust the current or
Yeah.
adjust the wattage or the temperature.
So
Yep.
I'm showing one at the screen right now. Strangely enough, this
Is
is
that the one that,
my
that runs
favorite.
off a lipo?
It just runs off a LiPo, 3S or 4S. I usually use a 4S battery.
Yep.
I take this to the field with me. But if anything ever goes wrong at the field, I've got this. But I don't use, unless I'm doing batteries, I'll use a small fine tip. Somebody was asking about soldering tips. What I do, it's kind of hard to do. I'd have to do a whole separate show on that. But for the stuff that I do, I don't use any more than a 40-watt soldering iron.
Yep, 40 watts all I use anymore.
Yeah. For anything more than that, I'll use a 60. But I don't even go above 60. If it has to be that big, I don't want a solder joint anyway. I want it to be hydraulic crimp. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got, and I'm sure that you do too. Especially unless you're just doing solder exclusively when you're building like the JST connections. I have one of the crimping tools, like the ratcheting crimp tools.
Yep.
And even with those, I'll put like a dab of solder in them. I'll dip them in some flux and put a dab of solder on those just to hold them. Just in case that crimp decides that it wants to give up the goose.
Right.
The solder usually will not.
If you do a crimp the right way, it ain't coming loose. That's just the bottom line.
Right.
But if you're going to be doing real high amp stuff, which I do at work, I have electric vehicles and forklifts and stuff that I work on. Some of those will pull in excess of 1,500 to 2,000 amps. You want to have the right kind of connection, so those are going to be crimped and then sometimes soldered as well. But one of the most important parts of doing soldering is the solder that you use, and it might be reversed, but still, I think you guys can figure that out. Use good stuff for soldering. That's probably the most important step. This stuff has flux built into it, so it's flux core, and this is lead free. But use good solder. That's where it starts. Believe it or not, there's some solder that actually works pretty good from Harbor Freight too. I just use that in emergencies. But if you're going to be doing important stuff, use good solder.
Yeah, man. For the hobby, I'm glad you brought that up. For the hobbyist, a lot of us are not, we're not building the space shuttle guys. So
Right.
Tools from Harbor Freight work great.
Yep.
Don't be one of those guys that's like, I ain't using Harbor Freight because that's cheap crap. Man, we're flying foam airplanes.
Exactly.
Trust me, these aren't NASA grade vehicles, guys. You can use cheap tools; it'll be all right. No one's going to judge you.
Sometimes you don't want to know what the NASA guys have used. But anyway.
Probably Harbor Freight.
You never know. Yeah.
So, listen, I'd like to kind of open things up for questions, unless you have more to add, because I'm fascinated, man. I could sit here and listen to your, listen to your background and kind of listen to you talk about, the history of how you got started making the afterburners. I could listen to that all night, and I'd be happy.
Mm-hmm.
But
let's mix it up. Mix it up. Ask some questions. I'll look at chat and I'll answer.
So George Watts wants to know what brand solder that was.
Okay, so this is MG Chemicals. And I'll hold it up again so you can see. I'll just leave it up there for a second. It's MG Chemicals. I got this through Amazon, but the first place I got it was a store here called Fry's. I don't know if they have it out there too.
We've got a Fry's. We actually have two Fry's in Atlanta, but
Okay, there you go.
I know for a while Fry's was almost exclusively like a West Coast thing. I think they had one in Vegas, and they had a few in California, but they're making their ways around.
Yeah. So it's MG Chemicals, and this is yeah. So I mean, I hope you're able to see it. I held it up there for a while.
Another place, if you guys have them around you, that has good solder and equipment, and replacement tips, soldering stations. They've even got like the heat guns if you're doing like surface mount stuff. So I don't know if you've ever done like surface mount soldering before, Ray, but it's a completely different beast where you put like a ball of solder on a board, and then you heat it up with a heat gun and then place your
place it down on it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a little turbine in a stick, It's like 1,000 degree, or it's not 1,000 degrees, but it's up there, man. It's about 600-700 degree heat, coming out of the end of a little pin. That heats up the solder balls, and then you just drop your component in place, kind of move it around, and take the heat off, and let it solidify. So what I was going to say though is a great place to get that stuff if you've got them around you is Micro Center.
Yes. Oh God, I missed that place too, because we had one here.
Did it close down?
That place was awesome. Now it's a Walmart.
Wow.
But yeah, that was our favorite place. We got TVs, computers. We got a whole bunch of stuff from there. It was amazing. Love that place.
Awesome. Yeah. So we've still got we've actually got two Micro Centers here in Atlanta. And I consider us to be pretty lucky to have them, because Micro Center is an awesome place if you're looking for all kinds of stuff. I mean, and Ray knows, man, if you've ever been to a Micro Center before, dude, that is like a geek's freaking...
Totally.
Yeah, dude.
Totally.
They got everything. They got everything that you need to build like custom PCs. They got all the 3D printing stuff. They got filament coming out of their ears. They've got all the stuff for people that like to tinker in electronics. If you like Raspberry Pis,
TV, stereo, all that
TVs. Stuff. Shit, the last time I was there, they even had a VCR, man. I was like, what? What is this arcade piece of equipment?
Our first flat panel TV we got from there.
Micro Center's
an OLED. Yeah.
It's an awesome place, man. And a lot of times they're running great sales. So guys, if you got a Micro Center around you,
go there.
Dave Kowalski, I'll tell you, we had Comp USA's too, and as much as I love Comp USA, Micro Center's better.
Micro Center is amazing. Yeah, that was an amazing place.
Awesome.
Yeah, and the people there. I mean, if you think Best Buy is a good place, they're nothing compared to Micro Center.
No.
Awesome. Yeah.
If Micro Center has what you want, they're probably going to have it cheaper with better service.
Yeah.
And people that actually know what they're talking about when you go there, instead of a bunch of kids that are just there to collect a paycheck.
Right.
Like they.
And there's a place here called Central Computers that's close to what they were, but Micro Center is amazing. Yeah. It really sucked when they moved.
Yeah. So if you guys have not been to a Micro Center and you have one near you, go check it out, man. And go to like their little tinker section, because they have a lot of stuff that you can use in like electric RC. I get stuff from Micro Center all the time that I'm using in my airplanes. All the time.
Okay. So I'm looking at a couple questions. Let me answer a few.
Yeah, man.
So Josh, 6337 for a small liquid paste. I'm not quite sure what you mean. I've used 6040, the lead. This stuff is lead free, so it's a different ratio.
I'm not leaving, but I'm gonna go grab mine real quick, because mine is a different mixture.
Okay.
It's not a
Yeah,
60/40. That's what I used to use was 60/40, but I use different
right.
stuff now.
Yeah, and then they do have harder stuff that's a different, I think more tin. But this is SN99 because it's, it's lead free, so it's something different. But this stuff works really good. This is a fine gauge because of the small wires that I use, but you can get it in a thicker gauge for batteries, stuff like that. But let's see, I'm gonna look and see if there's other questions. Check G, yes, it's lead free. Well, George Watts, you're asking about how many burners can I build per week. Now that I'm off, let's see, what is that? 20 to 25, maybe a few more if I really push it. The ones that are twins, like the SC30 and F14, those take a little bit longer. But I try to keep it at about 6 a day so that I don't lose my mind. But I actually enjoy doing it, so it's not that big of a deal. Last week I sent out 14 orders last week. 2 of those to the UK and 1 of those to Austria. And then all the others are here in the US. I think a couple of you guys in the stream right now got some stuff from me last week. Let me see if I can find any other questions that I've missed. And hey, Mr. Photon, you could say something bad about Ray, but you won't. I know you could, but you won't. Let's see. Who else? Yeah, you guys can ask anything. Let me see if I can see anything.
So the solder I use, it's 6236-2, which is 10 lead. It's actually from Radio Shack, like old back in the day stuff.
The good stuff.
So it's 62% tin, 36% lead, and 2% silver.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the silver helps any, but I saw it and I was like, silver? Woo! And I had to have it.
Yeah, they use silver solder because it's higher temperature. Usually the stuff on the internals of the batteries is going to be a silver solder because it's got a much higher melting point.
Right. And actually, that's, I use it for everything. I use it as a multi-purpose solder and it works fine. It's just as good as like the 60/40 solder that I've used in the past. But one of the things that I have done recently is with some of my older packs, I actually ripped the balance leads out of a pack. Or ripped, I can't remember what happened, but anyway, it was like, well, crap, I ripped out the balance lead of like a 4S pack. So I took the pack apart because the pack was still fine, and like retapped all of the balance leads back onto the battery tabs and folded them all back down, and basically rebuilt the battery. Took all the tabs apart, cleaned them up, cleaned them up and all that stuff. Now, is that something that you've messed with in the past, or do you normally just not mess with your batteries?
I have, yeah. This is all back in the beginning of me flying RC electric. I had a pretty big meltdown with one of them because my balance leads popped out here and then arced on each other and melted together.
Yeah.
That was not a good thing. But it created a little bit of a fireball. Thankfully, I was able to get it out. But I usually don't mess with it just because they're so tight, they're so close. I'll fix these if I have to. But if I start having issues with this, it's because I've worn it out and the battery's already old, and especially in here. I'm used to working with bigger stuff. I got big hands, so I don't like messing with these things. I can if I have to, but if I have to do that much work, it's probably pretty old anyway. It's not really worth messing with.
Yep.
I'll just get rid of it.
Now I had one. I got one set of batteries. You know, and this was before I started using the smart packs. I had bought like the Fluorion batteries from Amazon,
Hmm.
um, which you know over time have proven to be pretty reliable cells. I mean, both of those packs are still running today. Um, you know, they were old 3300 packs. In fact, I got them when I got my apprentice. Those were the first two packs that I bought, you know, for the apprentice. But when I bought them,
No.
um, I didn't have, um, you know, you could only get them with like a Dean's plug on it. And the
Right.
apprentice had, you know, it had EC3 connection,
Hmm. Hmm.
you know. And I had seen a bunch of stuff at the time like, oh, you should be using XT60. And I was like, well, you know, I just as soon use what comes in most of the planes that I own. And all of the planes I was buying in the beginning were all, you know, E flights and Horizon style planes. They all had EC3s in them. So I figured, you know, leave the planes alone and change the batteries. So, but that was my first, my first time soldering an EC3 connection, which I vowed to myself I would never do again, and unfortunately, I've done it many times since then. And that's one of the biggest pains in the butt ever, by the way.
Right.
If you guys didn't know how bad soldering an EC3 connection sucks, I'll just tell you that
Right.
it's terrible. um,
So let me answer a question here, Dave.
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
see.
go for it.
Who is it? Troy Crank. I just sent him a burner. He just got one. He's asking if the Firey Booty shortens flight time at all. And the
Oh,
answer is
yeah, yeah, yeah.
no.
Not at
No.
all.
No, not at all. Dave, you can speak on it because you've flown it. But I test everything I have out, and I test it before I even bother selling it to anyone. I tried two different methods for, and I'll show you, two different methods for running these things. One of which was using an out. This is an FPV adapter. It's a step down UVC. It goes from 6S, anywhere from 2S to 6S input power, but the output power is always going to be 12 volts. So the first thing I did when I first started with these was I had an adapter that went from your balance lead that would take the 6S power, plug into this, and drop it down to 12. The only issue with that is that this thing is always pulling power from your pack. If I use this, yes, it will draw a little more, and the flight time, it's going to fluctuate by 10 seconds. But still, it's going to take some away. I got rid of this because it's number one, it's stuff. Number two, with the balance leads on your battery pack, the S means how many cells you have in series. So there's going to be seven wires here, but that's just for 6 cells. So I can get any voltage I want. See, this is the positive. This is the negative. The positive and negative go with the main on this. But if you go along each of those little things here, you can get to the voltage for each individual cell. You could do one cell, you could do a certain series of cells, you can do however you want. The way my adapter works is it chooses 3S, which is right down the middle, the fourth wire. I use 3S to run the system, but it barely draws anything. Even at full throttle, it's going to be, when the light's fully bright, it's only going to draw like 250 to under 500 milliamps.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
how many
we're
people fly
talking
around
milliamps, right? So like,
milliamps? Right.
you
Yeah.
know, point 0.3 amps or something to that
Right.
nature. I mean, it's a
Right.
very small current draw.
Very small. And all of these battery packs that I use fly on planes that have afterburners. So here, I'll just plug it in so you can see what it is. I have a smart checker here. Yeah, see, so they're pretty much dead even across the board. I think I plugged it in wrong. But they're dead even across the board. It might take a while to adjust. So this plane flew hard in my F-35. And what is it at? I'll read it so you can see, because you might not have been able to see. 3.78 clear across the board. So no, they don't. Um, it doesn't affect it at all. It doesn't affect flight time. I have one plane that pulls 150 amps. My F-22 and my F-15 pull 150 amps peak on 6S, and they use the same setup. Doesn't affect anything.
Right. So I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is, but I'll ask anyway. If
Go
someone
ahead.
had if someone had like an 8S battery, would you know, I know that most of the burners that you make have the 7-pin JST connector on there.
Right, right.
I'm sure you could make it with a 9-pin JST and still tap into that third cell, you know,
Right.
if they had like an 8S pack.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. No, and I've got all these packs with me. So this is a 4S, and this is what a lot of people will use on their 8S setups.
Yeah, just
If you
pick
put
one.
two of these in series. Yeah. No, you don't just pick one. It's very important to do it this way. I don't have a series adapter here with me. But with a series adapter, even though it's going to be, you know, you're putting two batteries together, there's two main leads that go out, and they're going to be a black and a red.
Yep.
And then there's going to be a little U in the middle for the series. When you use my Afterburner and you tell me that it's an 8S, I make an adapter that will fit this, but you have to use the one on the negative side of the series connection. That way, you're going to be in the right order, so you don't have to worry about frying anything. Does that make any sense?
Gotcha. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does.
So what I'll do, and I've sent out 12S, 14S, 8. It doesn't matter. The system always runs off the same voltage. You just have to make sure to, like I said, the most important thing. And I've had a couple people say, I didn't do what you said and it fried. So I always make sure to tell people, use plug this lead in to the one on the negative side of the series connection, and you'll have no issues. Now, I'm also going to work on something too where it won't matter. So if you do plug it in on accident, it won't do anything. But it won't work, but it won't kill it. So you just have to put a diode in the way to keep it from feeding back and going and frying things. And I've done it too. I did it at the field, so don't think that I'm exempt. I mess up too. It happens.
I think we all do. You know, people expect, you know, that folks that do this type of stuff for a living that they don't make mistakes, and I'll tell you that's not true at all. You know,
We make less. We make less mistakes, but we still make them.
speak for yourself.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, just people say they don't see me crash. I killed a plane a couple of weeks. Well, more than that now since we've had the shutdown. But I killed a plane. My Hawk. I love that plane, but I was doing something stupid and destroyed the nose gear in the front. So trying to do a long flight. The flight was still long, but I went around one time too many.
Right. So we got a question from Bob Turner who's asking, what would you recommend for a good soldering station? And I'm going to put a link to, well, the link's not going to fit because Amazon is a bunch of turds and they have super long URLs. So I'm going to put that URL into Bitly and shorten it up and put it in here. But Ray, do you have any recommendations on soldering stations?
If you want a station, you know, I think that JB Linden has one on his page, on his Amazon store. I don't remember, but there's one that I bought from a place local here called RC Juice, rcjuice.com. Look them up. They have a huge soldering section. I have just regular soldering irons. You know, there's no big station. I didn't pull out all my stuff, but I have the most important thing for soldering is a third hand. You need one of those.
Yes.
On top of having good solder, and then having the right type of tip that you need. So let's see. The one that I use is from RC Juice. Go into their soldering section, and you'll be able to see there's a whole bunch of different kinds. The one that I got was probably right around $40, and you could change, change the temperature and all that, and it works really good.
Yep.
But I use this. For what I'm doing here, I use the simplest stuff possible because I don't want a whole lot of stuff in the way. I just use a simple 40-watt soldering iron, 60-watt soldering iron that plugs into the ground with the temperature control. And these were on sale at RC Juice. I got them for like $6-7 each. So you don't have to go crazy high. It depends on what you're going to do. If you're doing batteries, the Hobbyco sells a decent soldering iron for batteries. You just have to be prepared to change tips often. But
right, just the tip, fellas.
Just the tip. Yeah, just the tip. Yeah.
So I put one of the stations that I have used in the past. It's a Hako or Hako, however you say it. And I put a link in the chat for that for Bob Smith. It's an Amazon link. So if you click on that, that will take you to the Amazon page. It's like $104, which is a little bit on the expensive side. I know people would be like, "Why would I pay that much?" But what I'll tell you is, if you need something that's going to give you accurate temperatures, that Hako, however you say, HAKKO, that thing. The temperatures on it, there's a bunch of reviews on YouTube of that station, and they get fantastic reviews. And a couple of the guys that are a bit more scientific in their review process will show you that soldering iron is almost dead nuts. Whatever you tell it you want the temperature to be, it holds that temperature almost spot on. Within like plus or minus 2 or 3 degrees, which is awesome when you're talking 700 degrees. That's really good, temperature holding. And the other thing that it does, which is also very good, is temperature shifts. So if I want to go from, say, 500 degrees to 700, the amount of time that it takes for it to go to 5 to 700 is almost instant. And as soon as it reaches it, it holds it. So, yes, it's a little more expensive, but they're awesome. And they don't have a lot of decay time either, so when you do something that would typically cool it off, so say you dip it in water or whatever, I mean, it jumps right back up to temperature really quick, and they're great soldering stations. So highly recommended if you want, a serious toy to play with.
Yeah, another thing for soldering tip, there's these little things called solder cleaners that they have that helps for cleaning your tip. You guys, you're going to take it dirty, but still, there's the soldering tip cleaner, and then using a wet sponge, not soaking wet, but using a wet sponge does help.
Yeah, so the soldering tip cleaner that he's talking about almost looks like a Brillo pad.
Yeah, it looks the same. Yeah, same thing.
It's a little more loose. It's not steel wool. Well, actually, it is. It is kind of steel wool, but it's like a really coarse steel wool, like a 00 or something. It's not like real fine mesh steel wool.
Yeah.
It's a thicker ribbon.
It looks like what your grandmother used to use to get really nasty stuff off of plates and pots and things.
Yeah. On submarines, we had them all the time, for cleaning, and we called them a pretty filthy name. We called them steel pussies.
Basically, that's what it is.
I'm offended.
Amy says she's offended.
I'm sorry, Amy. I don't think I can find mine. But yeah, it's the ones I use basically looks like the helmet from the guy on Spaceballs.
I found it a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long time. if you want to. So,
But yeah,
Amy's making a special guest appearance. The ratings for the video are about to skyrocket.
Where's Dustin? Dustin's going to be happy.
And I made this shirt.
We,
I can't figure out where to go. Okay.
that's the camera. She's got a shirt that says, I feel like 2007 Britney. But she didn't cut her hair off.
No, I didn't.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, you got to cut your hair off if you're going to go true 2007 Britney.
I'll just
Like, you got to go bald.
no, that's not
All right, so do we have
Any
any?
other
What does that say?
questions, guys?
You got to get the Gooniac a something for Christmas. What is that?
I don't even see
That's
what it
Wes
is.
saying it, so it's probably dirty.
Oh, no.
What does it say? A microphone? We got to get Gooniac a microphone for Christmas.
I've got something coming. I ordered something from GV Store, so it'll be here soon.
Nice, nice. Did you get you a Blue Yeti?
No, that doesn't sound right. I just got a basic headset with a better mic.
Right on, right on. So, look, I hear you keep talking about, going live every now and then. And one of the funny remarks that we had earlier was that, all the Zoom sessions that they've seen you and they've never heard you talk this much, which was one of the reasons that I wanted to get you in here. I think a lot of people, I think a lot of people
sat there and worked on stuff and laid down and looked, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people have probably seen you in the Zoom sessions or whatever, but they've never really heard you talking.
Right.
So, I'll tell you, I hope that folks have enjoyed being able to get you on here and getting to hear you. And, my understanding is that you're wanting to maybe start doing a live stream. How's that looking? Is that something that you're wanting to do?
I'm getting there. The funny thing is, I didn't realize that my son, he's been using OBS for his gaming stuff.
Right.
So he knows that system pretty well. He said he's willing to help me. He builds computers too. So he said he's going to help me put together a computer that can handle it. The computer that I use is old. It's an old 2012 Acer laptop. I don't even think it has a graphics card in it. So I just use it for basic stuff. But my son's going to help me out. There's a thing called StreamYard that I was going to try before we get it works similar to OBS, but everything's online. R. Huffins, he's the one who told me about it. So I'll try that out.
Yeah, be careful with the stuff that Randy recommends, man.
That's true. I guess I got to be careful. But
you never know. You never know
I
what's
tried
going to
it. It was
pop
pretty
up
good.
in your. You never know
Maybe
what's
it's
going to
gonna-
pop up randomly in your stream while you're trying to go live on YouTube.
You never know.
If somebody's going to be piping in like the raunchiest of the raunchy stuff from YouPorn into your stream.
Somebody'd be happy about that, but yeah.
Somebody would, but not the YouTube monetization filters. I don't think they'd like that very well.
No. So if I am going to do that, I'll try it just once and see what happens. But I'm waiting for my son to help me.
Just do
Get
it
that stuff set
before.
up.
Do it before you hit 1,000 subs.
Oh yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
I was going to try to do it this week, just for once, just to see what happens.
right.
If it's a train wreck, hey, people like to watch those anyway. So
That's true. That's true. People generally like to watch any kind of wreck. Train wrecks,
They do.
airplane wrecks.
especially crashes, they like that.
Really, a lot.
Yeah.
And people
Yeah.
that don't even like RC like watching RC planes crash.
Yeah, I think one of the most popular plane crashes, the helicopter with the Zero. I don't know if you guys have seen that. I know the guys. I fly with the guy who let me fly his turbine a couple weeks ago. That was his plane that was destroyed. It's probably one of the most. You guys probably know what I'm talking about. There's a helicopter flying and a Zero flies and just it destroys a Zero. The Zero is huge. It's like a 70 cc or 100 cc engine.
Oh wow.
I fly with that guy, and he let me fly his plane a couple weeks ago. So yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of those. It's a YouTube. I think it's called Essential RC or something. Like all they've got is, RC airplane crash videos.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
Dennis, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. On all the crash compilations, I fly with that guy regularly. Cool guy.
Yeah. I mean, that sucks, but it's still awesome.
People love it. Yeah, Zero heli crash, Mickey B. That's it. Everybody loves it. I don't know why. But
Yeah.
You get to hear them. What the hell were you thinking? Oh my God. It's funny.
I was thinking it was awesome.
Exactly. I was like, oh my God, it's awesome.
So listen, I mean, we're right at 2 hours, and this is about the time.
It's really been that long?
It has, man. Yeah.
My wife just looked at me, so yeah, it has been.
Yeah, it has been. So it's time to go and eat, probably. But
okay.
Listen, man, I have really enjoyed having you on. If nobody's got any more questions, we'll let you go because I know you're out on the West Coast. I ate dinner before we started, but you're we started right at like 5 o'clock your time, so
Yeah.
you gotta go and spend some time with the family. My family's tired of me already for the night. They're like, get the fuck out,
Yeah.
Lee Davidson.
Yeah, so if anybody has any other questions, I respond pretty quick to Facebook. If anybody can post that link in there for me again, I can't do it, but post any questions to the Facebook page through Messenger, or you can send me an email. Thank you, Dave. Send me an email, and I can get back to you pretty quick. Or comments on the video.
Yep.
I comment right away on videos. I have a ton of videos. I think I'm like kind of OCD about recording my flights. But if anybody has questions, put questions there. I answer stuff pretty quick. That's it.
Where was that? Jeff in Lower Alabama says, Dave, this is your best show ever. Nice going, Ray. Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate that. I want to try and get some other, cool guests here in the next couple of weeks. Even Captain Photon, who never says a nice thing about anyone, says, great show,
Photon.
Air Marshal and Ray. You impressed me. What?
I impressed Photon.
Dude.
Wow. Okay, cool.
I will take that as a win right there. We've won the internet. The whole thing.
Dave, I appreciate you having me on. This has been fun.
Absolutely, it has been. It's been great. I'm glad that people actually finally got to hear you talk instead of just staring, at your solder stuff while you were listening to the rest of us.
Every now and then look down and look up and then laugh.
Yeah, man. So it's been awesome, Ray. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. We're going to give Ray back the rest of his evening so he can spend it with his family. For everybody else, make sure that you wash your damn hands. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the like button. And go tell your friends that this is the most awesome RC YouTube channel on YouTube. Even if it is a lie, that's okay. We all tell lies every now and then. It's cool.
The algorithm will thank you.
Yes. And look forward to seeing Ray here live soon.
Before I go, guys,
yes.
I got to give a shout out to 2 people, actually 3. Hangar 51, I just got that something through the airplane from Pilot Ryan. I won that on his thing, his giveaway. Dave's RC, he's always shouting me out, so I want to shout him out too. I appreciate all the kind words and stuff he's done. And then the other one was Pilot Ryan, because I got that charger it showed up like right away. I got that from the giveaway too. So
Real quick, Ray.
thanks to all of you guys.
You know, I wanted to ask you, have you had a chance to play with that charger, and do you have any smart batteries?
Not yet, but everything's coming.
Okay.
So,
So I definitely want to hear your opinion on that. I didn't ask you about it tonight because I don't think you have any smart batteries yet, but I would love to, you know, maybe after you get it, we'll have you on again. Or,
and I haven't even opened the charger yet.
yeah,
But I have
yeah.
a power supply already, and I've got a couple batteries from a fellow actually a customer that I sold a burner to. He sold me some batteries for cheap, and they're smart batteries. So
Awesome, awesome. I think you're gonna like them. I am a full believer now in the Spectrum stuff, so I think you're gonna like them. But yeah, I'm sure that we're all, you know, waiting with bated breath to hear what your opinion is on those things, man.
Yeah, and like I said, I've used a smart checker. Got that from Pilot Ryan from his store. The link on his Hobby Zone store. So you know.
Hey, Michael, the bus is always running, dude. Gooniac's gonna be all right. So hey, Gooniac again. Thank you, sir. Thank everybody for coming out. I know there's still like 45 people in here, and I'm sorry I'm cutting it off, but it's been an awesome night. Thank you, Ray, and thank you to everybody. We will see you guys next week, and we are out, fellas. Thank you guys for coming out.
All right, Dave, that was fun.
Yeah, man.